Breaking news. And I mean really breaking. We're seeing reports flooding out of Paris today, January 28, 2026. They confirm France is discussing the deployment of 10,000 soldiers. We're talking two full brigades directly to Ukraine. This isn't just, another creative ammo. This is a fundamental shift. France sends new military aid and maybe even boots on the ground. If you support Ukraine and want to stay ahead of the curve, so subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Arya in the latest podcast by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover, the shift of the century. We are talking about the coalition of the willing, the activation of the multinational force Ukraine, the MNFU, and this massive 90 billion euro financial package that just changes all the rules of the game.
It is a massive shift, you're right. And let's be really clear right from the start. It's not just about the troops. We are talking about a complete restructuring of European defense. We even have details on the new command center at Mont Valérien near Paris.
Plus, we're looking at the hardware. France sending Rafale jets, Mirage 2005s, and ramping up Caesar howitzer production to levels I don't think anyone really thought was possible.
And the big question, really, with the U.S. administration pivoting its focus to Venezuela and, all the tensions rising over Greenland, is Europe finally achieving what they call strategic autonomy? We'll explain why this Buy European loan clause might just be the most important detail in all of this.
Stay tuned. You really don't want to miss where this is all heading. So let's unpack this headline from Les Echos that dropped today. 10,000 soldiers. French President Emmanuel Macron is talking about deploying 2 brigades. I mean, that is just a staggering number. When I hear 10,000 French troops to Ukraine, my immediate thought is, are we talking about World War III? Is this a direct engagement with Russian lines?
It's definitely designed to look like that to Moscow, to create uncertainty. But we need to be very, very precise about the mission profile here. I think the public hears troops and, they imagine bayonet charges in the Donbass. That is not what is on the table right now. This is all part of the MNFU.
Okay, so if they aren't storming trenches, what is the actual point of 10,000 soldiers? What do they do?
Think of them as deterrence forces, or maybe reassurance forces.
Mm-hmm.
The operational plan, from what we're seeing, is for these troops to be deployed after a ceasefire or some kind of credible cessation of hostilities. The goal isn't to fight the current offensive. The goal is to make sure Russia cannot attack again once the shooting stops.
So it's a tripwire force, basically.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It just raises the stakes enormously. If Russia wants to attack Kyiv again in, say, 2030, they would first have to roll over a French brigade to do it, and that would instantly bring a nuclear power into the conflict. It's about cementing the peace, not fighting the war.
That makes sense strategically, but, you can't just drop them in a field. You have to support that kind of force.
No, and that's where the really interesting detail comes in. The command center for this whole operation. It's located at the city of Mont Valérien, right near Paris. That's going to be the nerve center for everything.
Mont Valérien. That's a pretty symbolic location in French history, isn't it? A lot of resistance history there.
It is a very deliberate choice. But politically, this is still very risky for Macron. He held a closed-door meeting with party members about this, and I'm seeing reports that there's going to be a debate in the French parliament within, 15 days to 3 weeks.
And is he going to get the votes for that, or is this just going to be dead on arrival?
You'd think there would be massive pushback, but listen to this detail. Mathilde Panot, she's the leader of the LFI party, the hard-left opposition. She mentioned that this number, just under 10,000, would be part of a British-French contingent.
Wait, a British-French contingent? So the British are locked into this too?
That's the implication. And if this is a joint Franco-British initiative, it just changes the political flavor entirely. It's not France going it alone on some crusade. It's the 2 major military powers of Europe standing shoulder to shoulder. And this is totally distinct from the forces already on the eastern border in Romania or Estonia. Those are NATO missions. This is something else.
Which brings us to this term I keep seeing everywhere, the coalition of the willing. It sounds a little bit 2003, doesn't it?
It does have that ring to it, yes.
Yeah.
But it became very real earlier this month at the January 6th summit in Paris.
Right, the summit. I saw the list. 35 participants, 27 heads of state, Zelensky, Starmer from the UK, Macron. But I want to ask about the Americans. I saw U.S. envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were there. Were they, running the show?
And that's the fascinating part. They were in the room, absolutely, but they were not at the head of the table. The leadership is distinctly European, specifically Franco-British led. The U.S. was present. They were supportive, but they weren't driving. And the structure of this thing really reflects that. They set up a command rotation.
A command rotation. How does that work? They just trade off every year.
The headquarters starts in Paris, the Mont Valérien, as we said, and then it rotates to London after 12 months. It's a true partnership.
Okay, here's a practical question. If you have a French HQ, then a British HQ, you've got troops from the Netherlands, the Baltics, maybe Canada involved. What language are they all speaking? Because French military doctrine is usually pretty strict about using French.
This is a huge concession to reality. They are using English as the working language for the three-star command level.
Right, even in Paris.
Even in Paris. That tells you everything about how serious they are about interoperability. If you want the Dutch and the Estonians to plug into your command grid seamlessly, you have to speak English. It ensures this isn't just a French project, it's a multinational NATO standard force, even if it's operating outside the direct Article 5 structures.
So, besides just sitting there as a tripwire, what is this MNFU actually doing? Because 10,000 troops is a lot of manpower to have just standing around.
It's a very robust mission profile. They won't be idle. It involves air policing, so securing the skies so Ukrainian cities can finally breathe without constant raid alerts. It involves naval mine clearing in the Black Sea to get grain moving safely again. And, crucially, something they're calling regeneration.
Regeneration? What's that training?
It's training, but it's more than that. It's about rebuilding. The idea is to take Ukrainian units that have been just battered on the front, pull them back, and rebuild them to NATO standards on Ukrainian soil.
That's a big logistical shift. I mean, before, they were shipping guys to the UK or Poland for training.
Exactly. Doing it in-country speeds everything up.
Yeah.
But you can't train a modern army without, the heavy metal. And the list of what's moving into Ukraine now is getting really impressive. Let's talk about the air power.
The Mirage 2005s. We've been hearing whispers about these for a while.
They've arrived. As of this month, January 2026, the first batch of 3 is in-country. And we've seen the photos. They're in Ukrainian livery, painted up, and ready to go.
But 3 jets. I mean, that's not an Air Force. That's a patrol flight.
It's the start of the pipeline. And they aren't flying empty. They're armed with Missy missiles for air defense and, this is the key part, SKLP cruise missiles for long-range strikes. But the Mirage is sort of the bridge. The real story, the one that's going to matter for the next decade, is the Rafale.
I saw that letter of intent. Up to 100 Rafale F-4 jets. 100. That sounds like a fantasy number. Is that actually realistic?
It's a long-term play, yeah, stretching out to 2035. But the number matters less than the specific model. Why the Rafale F-4?
I'm guessing it's just the latest and greatest upgrade.
It's more than that. It's a philosophy change. The F-4 standard is designed for what they call networked warfare.
Okay, break that down for us. What does networked warfare actually mean for a pilot in the cockpit?
It means the jet isn't just a shooter anymore. It's a flying router, a sensor. It bridges the gap to 6th-generation fighters. It shares data instantly with everything else on the battlefield, drones, artillery, even naval assets. By committing to the F-4, Europe is telling Kyiv, we aren't just giving you our spare parts so you can survive today. We are integrating you into the future of European air dominance.
Wow. That is a powerful message. But, wars are still fought in the mud. Artillery is still the king of the battle in Ukraine. We've talked about the Caesar howitzers before. Is production actually keeping up this time? Because we heard a lot of promises in 2024 and 2025 that just didn't materialize.
This time, the industrial lines are really moving. Before the full-scale invasion, Nexter was producing maybe 2 Caesars a month. It was a boutique item. By now, in 2026, they're hitting 8 per month.
That's a quadruple increase.
And it's necessary. There's a new deal for 78 systems, financed by France, Denmark, and Ukraine altogether. And the ammo production is trying to keep pace. France is aiming for 80,000 shells this year, in 2026. That's doubling their previous output.
80,000 shells sounds like a lot, but in a high-intensity conflict, that can go very fast.
It does. It's never enough, but it's a surge. However, there is one other aspect of French aid that doesn't get a photo op. You can't take a picture of it, but it might be more valuable than the guns. Intelligence. And this surprised me. President Macron revealed in January that France now provides 2/3 of Ukraine's military intelligence.
2/3. I always thought that was the U.S.'s game. The satellites, Five Eyes, all of that.
It used to be completely U.S. dominated. Now Paris is the intel hub. We're talking satellite imagery, signal intelligence, identifying control points for those Russian Shahed drones. This shift is subtle, but it's so significant. If you control the intelligence, you control the entire picture of the battlefield. Europe is taking ownership of its own backyard.
Gain ownership implies paying the bill, a very, very big bill. Let's talk about the financials because these numbers are getting astronomical.
The EU Commission has proposed a 90 billion euro loan package for 2026 and 2027. That breaks down to 60 billion for military aid and 30 billion for budget support just to keep the Ukrainian state running.
But there's a catch in this loan, isn't there? A very specific clause.
The Buy European Preference Clause.
Okay, play devil's advocate with me here. If I'm a Ukrainian general and I need tanks now, and South Korea has them sitting on a dock ready to ship, why do I want a loan that forces me to wait for a French or German factory to build them? Doesn't Buy European just slow down the war effort?
In the short term, it absolutely creates friction. I get that. But this is strategic autonomy in action. Europe is saying, if we pay for it, we build it. The goal here is to strengthen the European defense industrial base, the E2B. They're trying to force the revitalization of factories in France, Germany, Poland. It's a closed loop. European money buying European weapons for European security.
So it's basically a massive industrial stimulus package wrapped up in a war loan.
You can see it that way. Or you could see it as the only way Europe can sustain this kind of effort over the long term without relying on foreign suppliers.
And speaking of the money, where is this 90 billion euros actually coming from? Is the EU just printing this cash?
Cleverly, no.
No.
They are utilizing the interest and revenues generated from immobilized Russian sovereign assets.
The frozen central bank fund.
Exactly. There's about 300 billion of Russian money frozen globally, but most of it is sitting in Europe, specifically in a clearinghouse called Euroclear. They are skimming the profits off that frozen pile to fund Ukraine's defense.
So Russian money is paying for the French missiles that are being used to shoot down Russian planes.
It is a certain kind of poetic justice, isn't it?
Okay, let's zoom out. We have the troops, the command structure, the money. But why now? Why is Europe suddenly sprinting after years of, let's just call it, jogging? We have to talk about the geopolitical context. The U.S. elephant in the room?
We do. And we have to look at the reality of January 2026. The Trump administration has made a very distinct pivot. Their focus is on the Western Hemisphere. We've seen all the reports about the intervention in Venezuela, the rising tensions over Greenland.
It feels like Washington is looking west, not east.
That's exactly the assessment in Paris and London. Europe has finally realized it cannot rely solely on U.S. security guarantees anymore. The French defense minister, Lecornu, was explicit about this. He said, effectively, that European security must fall on the shoulders of Europeans.
It's a sink or swim moment.
And they are choosing to swim. And this isn't just rhetoric, it's actually changing the logistics on the ground. Look at the plan for these military hubs inside Ukraine.
Right, this is a big change. In the early days of the war, everything had to be shipped to Poland for repairs.
Exactly. For years, if a Leopard tank or a Caesar broke down, you had to put it on a train, ship it across the border to Poland, fix it, and then ship it all the way back. It was a massive bottleneck. Now, the plan is to fix them in Ukraine.
But isn't that incredibly dangerous? Russia will just target those factories.
Of course. That's why the plan involves building protected, bunkered factories, some of them underground facilities, for maintenance and even some production. This integrates Ukraine into the European supply chain permanently. It reduces the turnaround time for equipment drastically. If you can fix a gun barrel in Kharkiv instead of Warsaw, that gun is back in the fight weeks earlier.
And this all feeds into the end goal. I saw a number that really stood out to me. 800,000 personnel.
That is the target size for the peacetime Ukrainian army. 800,000. It's a massive force.
That's bigger than almost any standing army in NATO Europe.
It is. And that is exactly the point. This isn't just about surviving the current winter or the next offensive. This is about long-term deterrence. The idea is to build a Ukrainian military so large, so well-equipped, and so deeply integrated with European command structures that Russia looks across the border and decides it's simply not worth the risk, ever again.
It's peace through superior firepower, essentially.
And superior organization, yes.
Yeah. So let's just recap where we are today. January 28, 2026. France is readying 10,000 troops for post-war deterrence. The Coalition of the Willing is up and running, headquartered in Paris. French jets, Mirages now, and eventually Rafales are flying over Ukraine. And Europe is putting up 90 billion euros, backed by Russian assets, to secure the entire continent's eastern flank.
It's a breathtaking amount of movement in a very, very short period of time.
It really is. It feels like we are watching history pivot in real time.
I think we are.
Yeah.
And if I can just connect this to the bigger picture one last time, we are watching the birth of a true European defense union, And it's happening not through treaties signed in some Brussels meeting room, but through sheer necessity on the ground.
Necessity is the mother of invention, as they say.
Indeed. And the question I'm left with, and the question I think you should chew on, is this. With the U.S. looking west toward Venezuela and Greenland, and Europe looking east toward the Donbas, are we seeing the permanent shift of NATO's center of gravity? Is it moving from Washington to a new Paris-London axis?
That is a huge question.
And think about this. If Europe is paying the bill, that 90 billion euros, and if Europe is providing the troops, those 10,000 French soldiers, does that mean Europe, and by extension Ukraine, get to dictate the terms of the peace? If Washington isn't footing the bill or providing the security guarantee, do they still get a veto at the negotiating table? Or does the one who pays the piper finally get to call the tune?
That is a provocative thought. If you're the one standing on the line and paying the tab, you're the one who decides where that line is drawn.
Exactly.
Well, that is all the time we have for today. A massive update for what is a massive shift in global defense. You've been listening to Defense Report by Allison Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. If you found this deep dive valuable, don't forget, subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.